Okay, we're getting very close to the end of this story's climactic finish. We're on to chapter 29, Pink Furry Slippers. Just then, as Bert tumbled through the air, Armitage bit the monster's finger and, squealing, Bert flicked the rat off his hand and up into the air. Up, up, up! And into Dad's outstretched hand. "Oh, got him!" called Dad. Now he was hanging on by one hand to the tip of the funnel and clutching Armitage with the other. Armitage was squeaking like crazy. At that moment there was a gurgling sound and the gruesome twosome passed through the machine. It clunked and groaned like never before as they passed through the rollers. Finally 2 very large burgers trundled out. In one, Bert's shattered wraparound shades poked out. In another, Sheila's pink furry slippers were clearly visible. They were 2 distinctly unappetizing looking burgers. "Help!" yelled Dad. He was moments from being a burger himself. Zoe's attention shot back to the funnel. Her dad was still holding on to the side of the pulverization machine with one greasy hand gripping Armitage in the other. Dad's feet were still dangling over the grinders below, scuffing the tips of his shoes with a noise like a piece of paper being lowered into a desk fan. Zoe could see that he was sliding. The grease on his hands from Bert's apron meant that slowly but surely he was losing his grip. Any moment now he was going to breathe his last breath, and then come out of the machine as another rather large burger. Her head still spinning from its collision with the floor, Zoe crawled over to the cold, wet concrete floor of the warehouse to the machine. "Turn it off!" shouted Dad. Zoe rushed over to the lever on the side, but try as she might, she couldn't get it to budge. "It's stuck!" she called up. "Grab the ladder then!" called Dad. Zoe looked. The step ladder was lying on its side on the ground where it had fallen. "Quick!" shouted Dad. "Eek!" shouted Armitage, wrapping its little tail as tight as it could around Dad's free hand. Okay, I'm coming," said Zoe. With all her strength, the little girl righted the ladder and ran up the steps. At the top she peered down into the huge machine. It was like looking down into the mouth of a monster. The metal grinders were like giant teeth that would chomp you to bits. "Here," said Dad. "Take Armitage." Zoe reached down to take the little rat from her father's hand. Dad passed Armitage up. His legs and feet were still bound together by metal wire. She hugged him close to her chest and kissed him on the nose. "Armitage, Armitage, are you all right?" Dad looked up at this moving reunion and rolled his eyes. "Never mind about him, what about me?" he yelled. "Oh yes, sorry Dad," said Zoe. She put Armitage into her inside breast pocket and then crouched down onto the ladder and offered her hands to help him pull up her father. However, Dad was heavy and Zoe wobbled precariously at the top of the ladder, nearly falling headfirst into the machine. "Careful, Zoe," said Dad. "I don't want to drag you in too." Zoe took a couple of steps back down the ladder and curled her feet round the step to form an anchor. Then she reached out her arms and held on to Dad's and finally pulled himself up to safety. After climbing down the ladder, Dad yanked on the lever, turned off the machine and lay exhausted on the floor. "Are you okay, Dad?" asked Zoe, standing over him. "Oh, a few cuts and bruises," he said, "but I will live. Come here, your old dad needs a cuddle. I do love you, you know." "Yeah, I always knew, and I love you too." Zoe lay down next to her father and put his long arms around her. As he did so, she took Armitage out of her pocket and carefully untied his legs. Together they had a big family cuddle. Just then Armitage interrupted. "Eek, eek," he said, before doing a little dance to draw Zoe's gaze up to the tower of rats still squashed so cruelly into cages. "I think Armitage is trying to tell us something, Dad." "Well, what?" "I think he wants us to set his friends free." Dad looked up at the towering wall of cages, which all but reached the ceiling of the warehouse. Every cage was squashed full of poor, starving rats. "Oh, yes, of course, I forgot." Dad moved the ladder over to the cages, then stood on top of it, and with Armitage safely back in her pocket, Zoe climbed onto his shoulders to reach the top cage. "Steady," said Dad. "Make sure you hold on to my feet." "Don't worry, I've got you." Finally, Zoe managed to open the first of the cages. The rats clambered out as fast as they could, then used the little girl and her dad as a ladder to climb down to the safety of the ground. Soon Zoe had opened all the cages and thousands of rats were running excitedly around the warehouse floor, enjoying their newfound freedom. Then Zoe and her dad broke open the tank of cockroaches, which had narrowly escaped being ground into ketchup. "Look," said Dad. "Or actually, don't look. You're too young to see this." Of course, as you must know, reader, there is nothing more guaranteed to make a child look than this. Sure enough, Zoe looked. It was the freshly made Bert and Sheila burgers. The rats were devouring them greedily and finally having their revenge. "Oh dear," said Zoe. "Oh, at least they're getting rid of the evidence," said Dad. "Now come on, we'd better get out of here." Dad took his daughter's hand and led her out of the warehouse. Zoe looked back at the battered van. "What about the burger van? Bert won't need it anymore," she said. "Yes, but what on earth are we going to do with it?" asked Dad, looking at his daughter quizzically. "Well," said Zoe, "I have an idea." Wow, crikey. Those rats had a feast. Right, we're back for the conclusion chapters in a few days' time. So let's see you soon. Bye, guys.